we're talking about narcissism today, and some people might feel that certain politicians are quite narcissistic. I would argue that even to become a high-up politician, you need it, because how on earth do you deal with all of that incredible stress all the time unless you feed off it? But anyway, so many of us, if not all of us, have had acrimonious splits with partners. Anyone who follows politics, anyone who looks at some of the police behaviour recently that we heard about, pretty much everyone has started becoming aware of this word narcissist, and it gets bandied around. It gets thrown at people. I know any acrimonious split with a partner, the partner's always a narcissist. It's always that insult, as it were. But in the end, we've got to look at what is a narcissist, because people behave badly, it doesn't mean they're narcissists. People can behave in all sorts of ways, and everybody has control behaviours to some degree. That doesn't necessarily make them a narcissist. But there is this sort of feeling, and I'm not going to be the expert here at all, Marina J is, but this sort of vampire-like feeding that some people actually get off and thrive in a very damaging way on effectively destroying the other person, or in effect destroying them, or keeping them like a cat with a mouse, like torturing and sort of keeping them alive, keeping them alive. At least that's the way I would see it, and it's very grim, and it's like, we'll be talking about how can you deal with that, how can you recognise it, how can you know, anyway, so there we go. So, we'll be talking about also how to escape it, as I say, and we have the expert here, Marina J, who knows a lot about this subject. She's the creator of the Narc and Goddess template method, which obviously makes us think it's women, but one of the things is that narcissism goes both ways, and it's very much, there are male narcissists, there are female narcissists, and I would say it's pretty much the same degree. Maybe the behaviours are different, we could talk about that. She's the best-selling author of Turn Yourself On, which, enough said, a podcaster for 19 years, certified integrative life coach.
Get off Amazon, we're on the air. He's on Amazon ordering it now.
I must read that. Yeah, that's right. Occasionally happens too. And 25 years of yoga and meditation teacher. So, she's been around the block in a very spiritual way. Yeah. So there we go, and knows a lot. She works with women to uncover the hidden shadows that typical therapy and mindset strategies or self-care habits don't address, so they can rise and really thrive, become fabulous, if that's the right word. It's certainly the word she uses, so I'll say fabulous. And this puts people into their power, transform the relationship they have with themselves and the painful dynamics with others, so they can actually have decent relationships. Because even, one of the truths is that most of us, or many of us, have had difficult backgrounds. That behaviour tends to get replicated in every relationship we have, or there's a sort of compulsion to it, and we tend to get drawn to those people. And somehow to release ourselves from that, like moths to a flame. It's crazy. Which, is one of the things is like someone gets with a narcissist, they split with that narcissist, they think, right, now I understand completely what narcissism is, I will never get into that again. And then possibly they do. It happens too often because there's something that is unconscious there that is drawn to these things. And that's enough of me going on. I'll get on to Marina, and I'd ask Marina, what is a narcissist?
Good morning, how are you?
Good morning. It's really good to be here. That was a really good thing you just said. Everything was like bang, 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 bang. So when I look at somebody that's a narcissist, I actually don't really look at what they are. I look at how the victim actually acts, because to me it's everything about how you feel and what happens for you when you're around them. So actually my focus isn't on them, it's on you, which is the first stage of healing from narcissistic abuse, is actually to bring it back to you, because otherwise we can get lost in that mire of what are they, they're doing this, oh my god, and it literally puts the power in them. No, the power is in you. But if we were to start looking at what a narcissist is, we say to ourselves, all right, it's somebody that's very self-absorbed and they are doing it at the expense of you. So there is no empathy, right? They don't care. And they do this with their eyes open. Why? They want energy. So I liken narcissists a little bit like, if you know the Harry Potter series and you remember Dementors, there's kind of black ghosty things. If you haven't watched it, it's kind of these black ghosty things that will come up to you and literally suck your life force out of your face. Okay, that was on the films and the books, but it's the same, right? Because narcissists want your energy. So what they're going to do is they're going to do whatever they can do to get it, and once they've sucked you dry, quite literally, they will move on to somebody else. And so when you're around a narcissist, you literally can feel it. After you've had any interaction with a narcissist, and I often call them narcs, so that's not derogatory at all, it's just a quicker way of saying it. Because even the word narcissist, it's a tongue twister. It takes energy. It is, the name of it is as it is. It's going to take your energy. So ultimately with this, it's very much about you going, what is this? Okay, so you know you're around a narcissist, for example, where they blame you or they act the victim. So if you think back to when you've dealt with somebody, if you've held the truth up to them and you're being very reasonable and you're pointing something out, maybe you're hurt or maybe something's happened and you point it out to them, notice their response. Are they blaming you? Right? Are they blaming you? Do they turn it around and blame you? So if they're the ones that have had the problem, or they're the ones that have taken the action, and you're saying, please don't do that, they can turn it around and blame you. And or are they acting the victim? Right? So you have the crocodile tears, which means they're not really crying, it's for a purpose. So that's like number one, right? Are they blaming me or are they acting the victim? Second really big one is look at who you can't say no to. So if you think about people in your past, who has it felt dangerous to say no to, as in there's going to be backlash, right? They're going to blame me. They're going to make my life an absolute misery. Yeah.
So the experience of that, the blame. I mean, my feeling is that, of course, the person who's coming to that situation, it's not everybody's going to fall into that dynamic. And there's something in the. I mean, I know people use the word empath as a term, which I have slight difficulty with, because there's sort of a badge of honour with empath, isn't it? Oh, I'm so feeling. I'm such a caring person. Yeah. And I can't help feeling that in that empath there's also, well, there is a level of damage, because they are leaching out. There's no boundary, which, because they're so used perhaps to a parental background where they didn't get the love, and so they're trying so hard to get love. I'm really not having a go, by the way. It sounds just for the radio, because it's a wonderful thing in a way. But I do think we all need to be awake to the fact that these little labels, that none of them are great. The empath is obviously a beautiful thing, but there's some sort of damage there. And I wonder what you've got to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a fan of the word empath. It's sort of almost exactly as you've said. It's worn as a badge of honour. For me, what happens is, I believe, as children, for those of us that maybe grew up not feeling emotionally safe in our families, for example, we would have needed to have clocked our parents or our caregivers' emotional states in order to adjust our behavior to stay safe. So let's say that one of your parents or your caregivers is physically abusive or emotionally abusive. You're going to watch that parent. You're going to want to read their mind, aren't you? So that you can anticipate what they're going to do next, so that you stay safe. That means you start to overdevelop perhaps that ability. As children are beautiful beings in balance until they need to keep themselves safe. So it's a little bit like, let's say that you've got an amazing gift as a fast runner. Just because you can doesn't mean you're gonna, as in, you know what, I'm going to go to the Olympics. You don't have to. There's going to be lots of people out there or who's an amazing singer, but they don't want to become a singer. With empathy, we've had to overdevelop it. So my part of the work I do is actually to turn the volume down on it. The difference between an empath and somebody who would identify themselves as highly sensitive, for example, is that a highly sensitive person picks up all the energy. So you know what's going on, you know how people are feeling. An empath is like a sponge. You actually absorb that energy in, so that your feeling and how your mood is becomes my mood. And that's why, being an empath, we want to turn the volume down on it, because it's unhealthy to be feeling everybody else's feeling, usually much louder than you're feeling your own feelings. Because if you can't feel your own feelings, you can't navigate your way through life successfully. It's impossible, because I'm going to feel everybody else. I'm going to feel that you're not happy with me. I'm going to feel that you don't like me very much. I'm going to feel that you really like me. And it's so noisy in there, I can't even hear myself. And if I can't even hear myself, how can I follow my own guidance in any interaction? Yeah?
That makes a lot of sense, because growing up, didn't have the best sort of childhood. I just look at it now and think, well, the child was all right. You know, there's a lot worse people out there. And I think in my early 20s, I used to get that, try and second guess how everyone was thinking about me. So I wasn't as successful as I was in my later life, because I was so concerned. It made perfect sense what you're saying now. I resonate with what you're saying, because I was so concerned with what everybody else was thinking about me and trying to make everybody else happy with me, that I didn't do anything on myself, which I really resonate with.
That's right. So you end up living away from yourself, right? The outside world becomes a lot louder. And so what you find, and I'm going to bring it back to narcissistic abuse for a moment, is that what happens when you're around a narcissist is you tread water. So you don't go anywhere in your life. And usually what happens is you're putting a lot of energy into that narcissist. There's nothing coming back. It's all going one way. So it's all about them. And what that means then is that you don't go anywhere, you don't rise. And as children, what usually happens in this situation, in your situation, for example, is that you end up literally going to, think about your primary need as a child, if you don't feel emotionally safe, is to feel safe. So when something happens, if you're in crisis or you're scared or whatever, what are you going to do? You're going to stay safe. How do children stay safe? They withdraw, they fly under the radar, they become people pleasers, they adjust themselves, they do whatever it takes so that they're not ousted. As an adult, how does that translate? So then now, let's say you're worried about your bank account. Let's say that you're concerned about your job. Let's say that you're in crisis or you're just kind of scared. Instead of creating and manifesting and going for it in your life, you're going to do what you did as a child, which is stick your head into the sand and not do anything. Actually procrastinate, pull back, pull in, fly under the radar, which is the exact opposite of what you need to do. And I call that the narcissistic template, where you might not be around the narcissist anymore, but it's restricting your ability now to create and receive in your life now.
So would you say, in a sense, and I mean this in a very negative way, that as much as the narcissist needs the, what we might call the empath, and we'll say an empathetic, overly empathetic person, does the empath, in a very, destructive way, need the narcissist?
Yeah. Yes. And the reason is that you need the narcissist in order to actually move through this lesson. This is a lesson. So I look at everything as either a lesson or an initiation, which is, think about the narcissist. So what is the narcissist, right? The narcissist is me first. Me first at the expense of you, right? The empath is an agreement. Yes, it is you first. Your needs, what you need, how you feel, your problems are my problems. I'm going to walk on eggshells around you because I do not want you to explode. I do not want you to, hurt me, upset me. I don't want backlash. I don't want to be rejected. So I am going to make it all about you. So they're in agreement until the empath wakes up to what it is that's going on. And then they're going to get the lesson. The lesson is actually, it's me first. And because an empath or somebody that's on the other end of that is so aware of the other person, they're never going to hurt them. We can be me first without hurting other people. Do we learn? Yes, we learn. For the narcissist, the lesson is, it is also you first. It's not just me. Does a narcissist do that? In my experience, I've actually never seen it. Ever. But let's say it's possible, great. But it doesn't matter what they do. It only matters what we do, because it has to be about us now, right? If we've spent a lot of our lives around people, say growing up, either around narcissists or people that were emotionally immature, right? They didn't see you. They didn't hear you. They didn't get you. It was just, you had to just go along with it, go along to survive. You were in survival mode. If that's been happening, then this time in our life right now has to be about us. And we're going to do it in a really beautiful way so that it honors me and everybody else.
Yeah, because there's loads of strengths to be had, aren't there? I mean, these are wonderful things to be caring and open and all that, as long as we're that to ourselves primarily, and then we can give it without losing our energy and our soul, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, yeah.
Well, we're going to go to a little bit of music now, and if you'd like to inbox me, if you are feeling that you have been subject to a narcissist, or maybe you are the narcissist, please get in touch, because we can ask Marina J questions live on air and she'll give you a response. If you have just joined us, and I hope you've been on the show since the start, we have Marina J, and she has been talking to us about narcissistic behaviour and how can you deal with that, how can you spot that, how can you respond to that, and how do you move on from it. And she is here live to answer some of your questions and answer some of ours. So let's get back to the studio.
Yeah, one of the things we were just talking about is that people do bad things. People do things that aren't okay. People behave in ways that aren't okay. They can treat people in a way that isn't okay. But that doesn't necessarily make them a narc. And I think it's very important, because if we're talking in a relationship, and I guess it's always experienced in a relationship, if that relationship is going to have any legs, whether it be with whoever, whether it be a family member, a partner, or whatever, there has to be the opportunity for someone to sort of own up to their behaviour and to say, you know what, actually we can work at this, we can be conscious about it, and we can change. So I was wondering if you could just give us the sort of lowdown on what is the difference between bad behaviour and narcissistic behaviour?
Absolutely. I love what you said as well. So the difference between bad behaviour and narcissistic behaviour is there's no empathy for you. They don't feel for you at all. It is literally all about them. So, we can all behave badly here and there, but the difference is at some point we might look at the other person and go, oh, I'm really sorry. And it's not just a word. We act on that sorry, right? So actually the behavior changes. With a narcissist, it's all about them. It's all about control. It is all about the energy they can get from you. There is no empathy. There's no feeling for you whatsoever. So a great question for you to ask, and this can be in any relationship, is you look at the other person and you ask yourself, well, are they saying sorry? Like if they've done something and they have done something that's not okay, are they saying sorry to me? Or are they thanking me? Or how invested are they in my life, in my well-being? How invested are you in my well-being? And what you'll start to see is those that are and those that are not. And those that are not, I call them non-reciprocal relationships. It's when it's all about them but not about you. Now they might still feel and have empathy for you, okay, but it still might not be a relationship that you want to have.
But I believe, and I know that they can fake those things. So then I think we come on to there's something about the person, how they're feeling it, because they can say sorry. It's not like a narcissist wouldn't say sorry, but there's something fake about it. You know that it's not real, and I wonder, that's something that anyone in that sort of relationship, what signs do?
Absolutely, yeah. So with narcissists, you think you're in a relationship with them because you are loyal to them, you are pledging your love to them, but they're not actually in a relationship with you. And that can be one of the biggest shocks when you wake up, because you actually look at it and you think, well, who is this person? The person that you may have fell in love with, or the person that you met initially, would have been everything you wanted. Why? If you look closer, they would have been asking you a lot of questions about you. They would have been very interested in you, but it was to gather information on you. Then they start to mirror you. So actually the person that you fell in love with, for example, is yourself, because that person actually wanted you for them, for their own purposes. Then you'll notice with a narcissist, they'll be wonderful at certain times. So at the beginning of a relationship, they might even do love bombing, which is where it's all about you. Oh my God, you're everything. I finally found my person. All this stuff, right? And ultimately you're like, great, this person finally gets me. I feel seen. I feel heard. It is exactly as you've said, Neil. It is a big fat fake. It is a fact-finding mission for them. you have two different intents in that relationship. Your intent is to love them and to be with them. Their intent is to get energy. That's it. So then the mask slips, and we see that usually, depends on the timing, if you say 6 weeks into a relationship, and you'll see it slip for a split second, and it'll be a face, that their expression on their face might change. You might see rage, you might see their lips go really white and kind of thin, their eyes might dart. Suddenly they'll get really angry, and then they'll apologize, and it'll be, oh, I'm sorry. But again, that apology isn't real. And we know, as we start to heal from narcissistic abuse, we stop listening to the words and we start focusing on how it feels for us. Does it feel like a hollow apology? Does it feel like just words? How do you actually feel around them? Once you start understanding that, you're the litmus test. It's actually not what they do. It's not the labels. When I use labels purely for freedom, purely to free you from it. But ultimately, it's not about, are they ticking all the boxes? Are they all this? It doesn't actually matter. It matters how you feel around them. You are your reference point. So ultimately, you're exactly right. They are fake. And they will often show a very fake persona to the outside world. So if we take a big step back and we look at the world stage, like you were saying, Francis, right? There are a lot of politicians that are narcissists. There's a lot of people at the top that are narcissists. Why? That's often what it's taken in these very archaic structures that are all about hierarchy. I'm better than you, I need more than you, I'm going to get more than you, right? And so you have them at the top of industry. A lot of barristers can be actually very narcissistic. They make fabulous barristers, right? Because they can literally spin a story that feels true, even when it's not. Yeah, it doesn't matter who they're defending, right? They're absolutely perfect at it. And you often see this at the top because that's what it's taken to get them to the top. However, the good news is a lot of these leaders, and I call them global narcs, right? The global narcissists, literally, they're at the top. For me, the real leaders in every industry, relatively speaking, are at the bottom. There are some good ones at the top, but at the bottom, and we need to flip. We need the real leaders, the ones that genuinely care about the people they're serving at the top. And we need the ones that really are self-serving at the bottom. So I hope does that answer your question, Neil?
I think we're calling for revolution, aren't we?
I mean, with narcissistic behaviour, because I know there's a lot of people listening and I can see that people are starting to send messages in. With narcissistic behaviour, how do you spot it, or how do you know you're in it? Do you address it and think it's just a troublesome relationship, that you're having conflict with someone? Or when you start having conflict with someone, is that the signs that you're actually recognising narcissistic behaviour? Or are you just overlooking at it and going, well, actually, I'm just having an argument?
No, there are some red flags, right? And so the number one red flag is absolutely, are they blaming me or acting the victim? Do they seem to really have a need for control? Look at who you can't say no to. Look at who it would be dangerous for you to say no to. Look at who it is dangerous for you to self-differentiate from. So that means you having different views from somebody, the ability to have a boundary with somebody. Like, really, if we're in a relationship, we should be able to say no to each other and there not be massive backlash. Are you shouting to be heard? So no matter how reasonable you are, no matter how honest you are, no matter how heartfelt you are, they don't hear you, they don't see you, and in fact, they turn it around on you, they turn it back on you, and suddenly you're like, wait a minute, I was saying to you this thing because it's not okay with me, and suddenly it's turned around on me, and now I'm defending myself? Wait, you're the abuser, but you've turned it on me, you've blame shifted, and you're telling me that I'm the abuser. And instead of me going, wait a minute, no, it is you, in the moment, your voice feels louder than mine. And your voice almost seems to make more sense than me because they're very manipulative, they're very convincing, they're very clever, right? So you end up having to defend yourself. You defend yourself and then you walk away from that conversation and you're like, what just happened? Literally, what just happened? And I liken it to the washing machine. So I'll never forget when I woke up to narcissistic abuse, like I'd had it all my life, but I actually woke up specifically with a particular best friend of mine. And towards the end of the relationship, as I was waking up, she called me and she's like, "Hello, darling." And even that, I was like, oof. And she goes, "Let's have a chat. Let's talk about this." Because I'd written her a really straight, sweet email saying, I feel like we need different things from the relationship. I'm going to pull back, blah, 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 blah. And I remember when she offered me the conversation, I thought, you must be joking. I'm going to be in a washing machine with you. Even knowing what I know, you will still have the upper hand. So I'm literally not going to go there with you, because I had seen other people like lambs to the slaughter go into those quote unquote, let's have a chat. And they came out, I can't tell you, like a mess. And I thought, I'm only going to end up having to clean myself, literally like mop myself up for the next couple of weeks after that. Because when you're with a narcissist, nothing gets resolved, right? No matter what you do, no matter how you say it, no matter the truth that you show them, it doesn't lead to anything being resolved. All that happens is you go round and round in a circle, right? Like a washing machine. And you might even find that you start shouting, you start screaming, maybe your behavior starts to become extreme, right? Because you're like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, are you mad? Are you crazy? How come you can't hear me? Because in your mind, you're making so much sense, right? And you know that if you were to say exactly the same thing to somebody else that was healthy, it would get sorted. So you know when it goes round and round, huge red flag.
Okay, so I mean, just put in the word gaslighting, which is which is very, people know what that means, I think. I'm aware, or I certainly believe that well, two things I want to say here. One is I don't know whether the narcissist is conscious or not of what they're doing, but that's, perhaps something you just quickly go on. The second thing is, my understanding is that really with an out-and-out narcissist, there's no hope in a relationship becoming healthy. So what we've got to look at here, or what I'd like to hear about, is things about recovery and how we deal with it, and what we do to come out of a narcissistic relationship, because it's very difficult. Often there's kids involved, often there's money involved. It's a very, very tricky thing. It's not easy. Somebody could have been with someone for 30 years. It's not easy to move out. So I guess I've asked you about 4 questions. So if you can answer those all in once, that'd be good.
No, it's all good. So I want to address, first of all, do they know they're doing it? Yes, they know they're doing it. It's conscious. These people are doing it with their eyes open. And that's a major difference, right? From people that are just bad, having a bad day, having a bad moment. They're doing it with their eyes open. They can watch you cry with a straight face. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No feeling whatsoever, right? And they will make it all about them. So what happens is you end up going into shock, you defend yourself, you don't know what's going on, and this could go on for years, exactly as you're saying, 10 years, 5 years, 30 years, 50 years, 80 years, however long, right? And the way that we start to heal from it is, first of all, we go, okay, I don't know about you, the person I'm dealing with. I need to get to know me, because right now it's all about you. And as long as it continues being all about you, as long as I keep trying to look for more signs, figure you out, Google narcissistic abuse till the cows come home, speak to my friends about it, go on and on about it, nothing's going to change. That's a period of time in your life where you need to start going, okay, but you don't need to be doing that for years and years and years and years. What we need to do is bring it back to ourselves, because the healing is with us. Is the narcissist ever going to change? No, they're not. Why? They don't see themselves as responsible for their own behavior. It's your fault. And if it's always your fault, how are they ever going to heal?
Well, you're hearing it live and direct here, people. We're going to go to a couple of tracks, and then we will come back and answer some of your questions that have been coming in. So stay tuned. Well, you wonderful people, welcome back to Storm FM. We have Marina J, and she is live, and she's been talking about narcissistic behaviour. And I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know anything about it. Well, I hope I'm not a narcissist. I could be. We'll find out right now. No, we won't. Anyway, seriously, on a real serious note, we have had some messages that come in, so I'm going to let Neil talk for a little bit, and I will read out some of your messages, and we'll try to answer them the best way we can. So back to you.
Yeah, so Marina, she's going to judge us as whether we're narcissists or ex. By the end of the show, we'll find out.
Well, I can just say this. You can't see, but she's actually moved about 10 foot away from Neil. So don't be fooled by his voice. Anna's mum.
I'm feeding on your energy, Francis. It's not a laughing matter. It isn't really, is it? I want to talk about recovery. I want to talk about people who are in this situation. The first thing is somehow to get out of it, which is, I think, the first and most difficult step in a way, because you're in that sort of shock. You're a rabbit caught in headlights. Your being is emotionally sapped. You're like a empty husk. I mean, all these things, and you don't feel you probably lost all confidence and your independency. So, painting that lovely picture, tell me, how do people get out of it?
Absolutely. And I think I often think that, kind of when you've been on the receiving end of narcissistic abuse, I liken it to sitting on the end of your bed and just staring at the wall, lifeless. You've got no life in you whatsoever, like no energy. You doubt yourself, you gaslight yourself. For anyone that doesn't know what gaslighting is, it's literally when your reality is being denied. So you say that you think something, you feel something, you are something, and basically that person is saying, no, it isn't, I didn't do that. They will kind of evade you, they will tell you it's not the truth, it didn't happen, it's your fault. And you start to lose the ability to trust yourself, to trust how you feel and to act on it. So yeah, gaslighting is anywhere that you deny your own reality. Also, before I do that, I want to address what you said, Francis, which is, could we be narcissistic? The very fact that you ask that question means that you're not, because you're self-reflecting. So a true narcissist would never ask that unless it was for entertainment purposes or they would get attention for asking. But if it's a genuine question, which it is, right? I know we're having a laugh, but it is, you're not. You're absolutely not. Because if you're holding fear in you that you might be, you're not. A narcissist would never feel that. They don't care. They're not thinking about you. They're not thinking about you right now. They're just thinking about what they need next. They're thinking about where their next energy hit is going to be. They're thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about you. And this is partly why healing from narcissistic abuse, it's so important not to think about them either. We've got to go back to ourselves. So the first stage of healing, Neil, I feel very much is initially with my clients, it's to just hear them. Because if I hear you, you're hearing you. And the first stage is to actually hear yourself, to be validated, to actually feel how much it's crushed you, how painful it is, how much it's taken away from you and your life, what it's done to you, all of these things. Because that is the first stage, is coming back to you. And you will be in shock, and you will have all of these things. That's the first stage, right? When you start to hear you, you start to build a relationship back up with you. What's happened prior is you built up a relationship with somebody else at the expense of you. A true relationship is I love you and you love me. Not I love you, we both love you, but no one loves me, right? So for you, it's beginning to come in. So what I do with my clients is then we do a lot of subconscious healing, because a lot of this sits in the subconscious, right? So it's not talking therapy. Talking therapy is great for a while, but I have a lot of clients that will come to me with, they've been given this strategy, that strategy. If you have to be in your head all the time to think your way through life, it's going to feel exhausting and stressful. Once you heal deep down in your subconsciousness, you don't need to think how to deal with something. You already are that. You already are confident. You already are connected to yourself. You already know how you feel and you act on it. So subconscious healing is an absolute must. Letting your feelings out, right? Letting how you feel out, the tears, the anger, the pain, continuing to let it out. Otherwise, we stay in our heads the whole time. And there has been so much that's happened for you, you need to let it out. Your feelings are right? How you feel is right. If you have found yourself behaving extremely because of what the narcissist has done or said or behaved, and you're in shock and you're horrified and you're like, oh, who have I become? Like literally I'm this shouty mess, or I'm this angry, brittle. You have to go, okay, but what would make a reasonable person behave like this? Surely it's extreme behavior. And when you start to look at it, you're like, oh, I'm not a bad person. I'm not a horrible person. I've just been pushed to the edge. It's not saying that we're full victims, but it is acknowledging when you're on the end or you're on the receiving end of extreme behavior, you're going to have responses. So the next stage after you do the downward healing, right, the inward healing, is you start to say, okay, well, wait a minute. I need to start hearing myself when I'm with you. So this is these 3 steps that I look at, okay, and there was actually 4. So the first step, I always say, if you've been on the end of narcissistic abuse and you are sitting on your bed and you're staring into the great abyss of your bedroom wall and you've got no energy, can you just literally wrap your arms around yourself and just hug yourself? So if that's you right now, just literally hug yourself. And if you're listening to this on a bus, you can hug your thumb, right, if that feels just a bit embarrassing to do. As soon as you do that, you're breaking that electric board that says all your energy has to go outwards. You're immediately bringing the energy in. And then you're going to say, okay, I'm going to hug myself. I'm going to hear myself. What do I need? So the first stage of hearing yourself is, yeah, my feelings are right. I'm right to feel this way, right? I'm right to feel exhausted by this person's antics. I'm right to feel destabilized. I'm right to feel broken inside. I'm right because of everything that's happened. And you take a deep breath in and you're like, I'm right to feel this way. Okay, that doesn't mean you go yelling at somebody else and telling them whatever, but it's you no longer gaslighting you, right? It's you hearing, you hear how you feel. Can you act on it? And then you say to yourself, what do I need? So even if you're in that situation with that person, for example, or sometimes we have narcissistic companies, right? The way that they're run is very narcissistic. It's all about them at your expense. It's all about them, not about you. If you're in an organization that feels like that, can you at the same time, when you're hearing them, can you hear you? Because you're wanting them to hear you, right? You're wanting them to see you. You're wanting them to get it. They're never going to get it. They're never going to heal. And you're wanting them to hear you. Are you hearing you? Are you hearing you? Are you seeing how far you've dropped because of all of this? You can start to hear yourself. The energy stops billowing out from you and starts coming back in. What do I need? You can ask yourself that question. And even if you don't hear anything at all, the very fact that you start to ask yourself on a regular basis, you could even put it into your phone, it reminds you every day, what do I need? Starts to bring the energy coming back into you. Okay, and then there's the subconscious healing, right, which I'm a huge proponent on, because that will just shift mountains. And then the last part is, again, this is part of the narcissistic template method that I've created, which is, okay, I'm no longer going to treat myself like a narcissist would, right? Because what's a narcissist really doing? They're telling you you're nothing, they're discarding you, they're not listening to you, they're not seeing you, they're not hearing you, your feelings don't matter, your needs don't matter, right? It's all about them. It's not about you, it's all about what you can do for them. And you'll notice with a narcissist, they're incredibly callous with your feelings. Your feelings don't matter, right? It's all about that. But they're incredibly callous with how they affect you, but they're overly sensitive with how you affect them. So you will be walking around constantly on eggshells. Yeah? They can be awful to you. That's all right. They're fine. But the minute you do something tiny to them, boom. So we need to stop treating ourselves like narcissists, right? Where we do put our feelings first. We are important. It's time for us to shine now. And instead, now I work with a lot of women. I do work with men as well, but I talk about treating yourself like a goddess, right? And my definition of a goddess is to have a divine relationship with yourself. And if we take that a little further, that's like treating yourself as God would treat you. Now, I'm not religious at all, but you might hear, instead of the word God, you might hear creator, universe, higher power. It's treating yourself as a higher power would treat you, because that is the exact opposite of a narcissist. Yeah, so that's what I do with clients. And typically, for somebody that comes to me with normal relationship issues, they want to break through to their next level of success, they want to release self-sabotage, they want to believe in themselves, all that kind of stuff, or they've got issues with a relationship, a painful dynamic, that takes around 6 months. For someone dealing with narcissistic abuse, it's about a year. And what happens after that year, I mean, you'll shift within the first 2 to 3 months hugely, right? The first session, you'll start to shift. But what happens after a year is just like the best thing ever. You fly. It's amazing.
Well, we've had a message come in. And it's from Anna. And thankfully this time it's not about her mum liking Neil's voice. And Anna says, she said that she split with someone 6 months ago, and his behaviour she thought was narcissistic because he was very controlling and didn't like her mixing with her friends. Do you think that was narcissistic behaviour?
I mean, I'd need to know a lot more, for example, and I appreciate you writing into, hi Anna, lovely that you've messaged in. It is a red flag. It doesn't necessarily mean the person is narcissistic. It may just mean that perhaps they're just incredibly jealous, incredibly insecure. But it is a red flag of narcissistic abuse where they will isolate you. Because ultimately, right, if they want your energy, what are they going to do? They're going to control everything else. They're going to control everybody else around you because they want you for themselves.
Well, I've got another message, and this is from Lisa, and she's in Tunbridge Wells, and she says she was with a boyfriend. Sorry, Lisa, I'm not going to read out his name because I don't think that's fair on air. So Lisa says she was with her boyfriend, and what he did, he made her feel... trying to think how to put this nicely. He made her feel not a nice person and manipulated her to buy him things, and if she didn't buy him certain things, her life would be hell. Is that narcissistic behaviour?
Again, you know, I'd need to look at the whole picture, Lisa, and it's not about going, oh, I did this and so he is, and he's the bad person, I'm the good person. But it is kind of looking at the whole picture. So for everything that I've said today, does all of that sit, right? And it doesn't have to be all of that for them to be narcissistic, but it would need to be more than, for example, what you're saying. That sounds like it's on its way to narcissist. But from what I've said, I would want you to go inside yourself and really notice how happened to you. Did you start to lose your confidence? Did you start to gaslight yourself? Did you start to feel incredibly alone? Like, look at that, and then you'll start to realize. And the truth of the matter is, you know, nobody can make us do or feel anything. We're actually we're in our power. So nobody can make you feel anything. Nobody can make you do anything, because we are actually adults. But in very abusive environments, we can find ourselves acting out of character, right? Where we betray ourselves, and we know that it's not right to be buying him lots of things against our wishes, but we're too frightened not to. Yeah, and so we betray our truth, we gaslight ourselves, we treat ourselves as a narcissist would treat ourselves, rather than how God would treat us, for example, than how the most loving person in the world. Like, I saw a meme, and you probably know all of this. I only saw it for the first time about a year ago, but you know, dog is God backwards, so that the word dog, and you know, you want somebody to look at you as a dog would look at you. You know, a beautiful dog looking at you lovingly. That's a relationship. And my question is, are you willing to look at yourself like that? Because that's the, you know, we know we've healed from narcissistic abuse when we're no longer a walking reaction to what happened. We're totally free.
Well, we're just going to go back to a couple of songs now, and then we will come back with some more questions, and also we will be asking, is there anything we can do to stop, or is there a way to heal from it? And this lady has all the answers. Unfortunately, you don't, Neil, so he's a narcissist anyway. I'm only joking. Well, you wonderful people, welcome back to Storm FM, and we're moving on with the show. So, Neil, coming in, let's have it.
Right. I have a friend who is currently going through a big split with somebody after a long time. They have, what I'm noticing, what they've talked to me about, is the fact that they're going through all this stuff that you're talking about, I believe. Anyway, that's certainly the impression I get. And one of their biggest upset is other people don't see it, don't realise that the friends around them and people in the area where they are and so on, you know, it's all this sort of like, oh, this person's great, this person's such fun, you know, and this person is finding themselves very alone, although they're in recovery, I think. That seems to be a massive thing, you know, that, yeah.
It's really upsetting. It is really upsetting, because don't you just want to go to everybody else that's blind to it and shake them and go, can't you see what they've done? Can't you see what they've done to me? I really care about you. They don't care about you. 100%. So you have what's called the enablers, right? Or another term you might have heard is the flying monkeys. And they're people that surround the narcissists who have yet to waken up to what narcissistic abuse is, right? So what do? They do the narcissist's bidding, right? They will spread gossip, they will back the narcissist up, they will usually exclude you, they will discard you, just like the narcissist has discarded you, for example, and they literally will be everything to the narcissist and nothing to you, even though you've been in a real relationship with them. So you can feel incredibly betrayed, incredibly hurt, because when you finally wake up to what a narcissist, who they are, you don't just lose the narcissist, you lose them as well. And this can be whole family networks, this can be friends that you've had for 20, 30, 40 years, this can be your community, this can be people you work with. You can lose it all. And often when you wake up from narcissistic abuse and you begin on your healing, you can be quite lonely, because you realize actually it's everybody in that area. They're either, that person's a narcissist, and everybody that supported them as well. So yeah, absolutely.
So, sorry, you go. No, I was just thinking, what can I do to support him? I mean, what can I do? Because he's suffering, right? And I feel for him, and I would like to know really what the best sort of communications I can do to support.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing you look at is you say, okay, so whatever's going on, I've lost these people, okay, and I can't wake them up. And you may have tried in conversation, right? And they're not waking up. And yourself, you didn't want to wake up at some point either. So often we don't want to wake up because it would mean us changing our entire lives. It's too painful, especially maybe if you've got children, what have you, you've got sort of financial, ties to them. So what you can do is you start to say, all right, well, maybe I never really had these people in the first place. Maybe I thought I was in a relationship with all these people, but if they can discard me so easily and pledge allegiance to somebody else over me, is that love?
I know that you've got a theory about waking up to narcissism. We just spoke about it off air. Shall we touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. I have this theory. Go with me, guys. You don't have to agree with me. It's just where I'm coming from. Okay, so what I feel very strongly is in between the years of 2012, so if this relates to you, just look back at your own life as I'm talking, and if you're anything like me, you can't really remember everything, but anyway, see how you go. So I feel between 2012 2019, a lot of us woke up to the fact that we actually were being abused by narcissists. We always had been, but we actually woke up to it. And a lot of us went into therapy, or we started reading about it, we're on social media about it, and we started to distance ourselves either from narcissists or from a lot of one-sided relationships, right? And a one-sided relationship, again, is where you're doing the giving, but you're not doing the receiving. So when you get together with somebody, you talk about them, you sure as hell don't speak about you. Sorry. So between 2012, 2019, we literally were on this thing of waking up to narcissistic abuse. Why? I feel because global narcissistic abuse finally showed itself out loud in 2020. And so it was for us to go, well, you know what? We've already started healing from narcissistic abuse, and some of us have completed it, right, in those intervening years. So now we're ready. Because if I can deal with narcissistic abuse in my own family and lose the ones that I have loved so dearly, then whatever the global narcs do, I'm good. Because in a lovely way, I'm like Teflon. It's way harder to lose people that have been in your inner circle that you've loved so much than it is to deal with the outside world. It's like, hey, we've been in training for the last 12 years. We're good. Now we can lead, right? And it goes back to my point of having the global narcs at the top. They can be at the top in any organization that seeks to quote unquote be in power, to have power over you. That's what I'm talking about, right? So that could be any organization. For us now, it's like, we get it. We've dealt with it in our own family. We've dealt with it in our private lives. Now, what do, right? So to answer your question, you say, well, first of all, is this a reciprocal relationship? I love you. Do you love me? Right? Is that love for them to ignore you, abandon you, discard you? There may be a smear campaign going on as well, right? And they're believing it, right? No, it isn't. So then you say to yourself, okay, well, what should I do? You go, well, if it's not love, I'm going to discard it. Because if it's not love, it's already crumbling, right? Think about global narcissistic abuse. Whatever they're doing or trying to do, if it's not based on love, it's already crumbling no matter what they say. These relationships, if you're looking at Twitter, if you're looking at Facebook and you're seeing them all together and you're like, oh my God, I wish I was there, and they're probably talking smack about me, right? Can you start to discard them? Because that wasn't love in the first place. And if you're really honest, maybe it never was. Because if these people can be so swayed, I could never be swayed. If I love somebody, that's it. And isn't that how you are? Yeah. Now you just want that back. So in releasing these people, you can start to bring the new ones in, because what you don't want is to have a repeat performance. And so it's a way of just needing to let go.
Yeah, I do think this support thing is hard, though. I find myself in a weird position because I've known this guy for probably about 40 years, but obviously know the whole setup.
Yeah.
So and then I find myself caught in that betwixt and between, because you almost have to choose, don't you? You almost have to say, you know what, actually, if I was going out with his friends, which ex-friends now, that would actually be like a betrayal of him. So I find myself in this weird position where I have to, well, maybe not weird, actually choose. And I don't know, I sometimes question whether that's the right thing to do or not, but I feel it is, and I don't know what you think.
Yeah, because what are you really choosing? What are you really choosing, right? You're choosing you. Your entire life, and I'm talking about your friend, right? But I'm saying you because I want to see you and the listeners. Your entire life, who have you been choosing? The narcissist. Who have you been choosing? Everybody else but you. So it is a break, you're correct. The only way to truly heal from narcissistic abuse at the end is to have no contact, because there is no reconciliation. Because they're choosing not to. It is impossible to have a relationship with a narcissist because it will always be at your expense. Therefore, choose you. Hear you and choose you, and then you can let people in who you don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to be extra amazing and overly giving to actually be seen and loved and cherished, and that's when you start the rest of your life.
Well, you've heard it live here on Storm FM. Now, if anybody out there is thinking about they might be struggling with a narcissistic behaviour themselves or from somebody else, or they might want to get in touch with you about workshops, your books, anything you do online, how can people get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So my website has everything on it. So if you go to marinaj.net, that's marinaj.net, I have a free Facebook group, and in that group I do a lot of free training, and I have courses. My book, Turn Yourself On, I know it's a play on words, it is for you to turn your power on, and it's all about you. And so you can get all those details on my website.
Can I just say that J is literally AJ. It's not JAY, it is J.
Yes. Yeah, my surname is so long and it's double-barreled, and to be honest with you, I can't keep spelling it out, and I just thought I'm just going to put J in, so that's what that is.
It's like Madonna or,
Well, yeah, and you know what, like wherever you are in your life right now, and I appreciate some of you will have children, some of you will like, I can't go no contact, but there's always a way, and it starts with you deciding that you're going to have a really good life, like you actually deserve to feel and be cherished and to be loved, and for people to be soft with you and for people to love you, because you're absolutely beautiful just as you are.
Well, there you go. Lost for words. Can't even get the headphone on. Marina J, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here at Storm FM. I think we're all a little bit more enlightened, and I'm sure that I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions that come in at some point. So we'd like to see if in a couple of weeks you'd like to come back, and maybe we can have a couple of topics that people would like to discuss.
Yeah, good plan.